Hello, and welcome to this webinar program, Should You Apply for Judicial Clerkships? I'm Eric Stern, the Deputy Director of the Career Development Office at the University of California, Berkeley School of Law. I'm also proud to serve as a special advisor to the Pipeline to Practice Foundation. Thanks for joining us today. So for today's program, here's our agenda. First, we're going to talk about what judicial clerkships are and the different types of available clerkship opportunities. Then we'll examine the benefits of clerkships in terms of skill development and post-clerkship professional opportunities. We'll take a look at the application timeline and the process for applying. And then finally, we'll go over some key resources that will help you develop your application strategy and take the next steps in this process. Let's start by defining some key terms. What are judicial clerkships? They're typically 1 or 2 year term positions in which you work as a member of a judge's chambers staff. Among other things, clerks assist the judge in completing the business of chambers, whether by producing draft opinions and bench memoranda, helping the judge prepare for an upcoming hearing, overseeing case management, and performing necessary courtroom duties and administrative tasks. Clerks play a vital role in the overall functioning of the American judicial system. What are some of the benefits of clerking? A clerkship enables you to develop expertise on substantive areas of the law. Clerking will enhance your understanding of court rules and procedures. Clerking provides consistent opportunities to study examples of effective and ineffective oral and written advocacy, and this in turn will help you to become a stronger writer and oral advocate. Clerking will also significantly improve your oral and written communication skills. It'll strengthen your research ability, which is a fundamental legal skill that any subsequent employer will highly value. Clerking hones your editing skills and your ability to give and receive constructive feedback. Clerking teaches you how to work well under pressure and tight time constraints. This will prove particularly useful for clerks who plan to pursue careers in litigation. Clerks have an opportunity to serve the public in a significant way. Your work matters not just to the parties, but to the public. Clerks gain invaluable insight into the decision-making perspective behind the bench. Unless you become a judge someday, and I hope this is something that you will all consider, you may never have the chance to get this perspective on how judges make decisions and how our system of justice operates. Each clerk also enjoys a unique, close relationship with her judge. Clerks benefit tremendously from this one-on-one mentorship that they receive during their term. And for many clerks, they say that the clerkship year is among the most formative of their legal careers. So those are some of the skills that you can gain from serving as a judicial clerk. There are also a lot of professional benefits in terms of the doors that it will open for you. Because of the incredible skills and knowledge clerks acquire, clerks are highly appealing to prospective employers in both the private, public, and nonprofit sectors. Clerking enhances your credentials and significantly improves your employability. Most big law firms will offer former clerks a sizable clerkship bonus to reward them for their clerkship experience, as well as permit clerks to enter the firm at a higher associate level, providing a year of credit for the clerkship experience. There is no doubt that clerking is also a public interest and public sector career accelerator. Clerks make up a significant number of the new honors program attorneys hired by the U.S. Department of Justice and state attorney generals around the country. And clerking can pave the way for a later career transition into either the U.S. Attorney's Office or a federal defender's office. Clerks also do well when applying for competitive public interest project-based fellowships like Equal Justice Works or SCADD, as well as for social justice impact litigation positions and entry-level associate positions at plaintiff-side firms focusing on civil rights and workers' rights cases. For those of you who may be interested in becoming a law professor one day, Clerking can help make you a more competitive applicant for law teaching fellowships and entry-level legal academic positions. A quick note before we move on to our next topic. I recognize that it may not be financially feasible for all law school graduates to clerk right out of law school. Some students may be in a position where, because of family obligations and educational debt, they must go work at a private law firm. If you fall into this category, know that if you want to, you can always apply to clerk later. Judges, particularly federal district court judges, love hiring clerks with postgraduate practice experience. It is absolutely true that it is never too late to clerk if this is something that you always dreamed about doing. So now that we've examined some of the benefits of clerking and some of the professional doors that it opens for clerks, let's talk about some of the different types of clerkship opportunities that exist. So at the federal level, as you know, the United States is divided into 12 regional circuit courts, including the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia. There's also the Federal Circuit, which possesses nationwide jurisdiction over appeals from any district court that involves a question of patent law. This court is an ideal fit for students who have a technical STEM degree and who are intending on practicing in the area of intellectual property. Typically, each federal circuit court judge has 4 term clerks. Let's look at the federal district courts. So there are 94 district courts, and each state contains at least 1 district court, and no state contains more than 4 district courts. The various districts are generally denoted as Eastern, Western, Southern, Northern, and Middle. Not surprisingly, the Southern District of New York and the Central District of California are the largest districts, each boasting 28 active judges and 3 senior judges. Each district court judge may hire 1 to 2 law clerks. District courts provide an invaluable learning experience because they hear both civil and criminal cases and handle bench and jury trials, as well as other litigation-related hearings. Each district court is also paired with a federal bankruptcy court, which exclusively handles bankruptcy matters. Many district courts are also paired with federal magistrate judges who oversee certain aspects of litigation, such as discovery. Both bankruptcy and magistrate judges hire law clerks, but they are typically limited to 1 law clerk per chambers. So that's a quick overview of some of the opportunities that exist to clerk at the federal level for federal judges. Let's now look at some of the opportunities that exist with state court judges. So most state court systems mirror the structure of the federal judiciary. They usually include trial courts, an intermediate appellate court, and a court of last resort, often called the state Supreme Court. Judges at every level of the state judiciary hire law clerks. Judges on the court of last resort, or state Supreme Courts, are usually permitted to hire 2 clerks per chambers. Students who are interested in becoming corporate lawyers should take a look at clerkship opportunities with the Delaware Chancery Court. The Delaware Chancery Court is a forum for resolving disputes involving the internal affairs of Delaware corporations and other business entities responsible for a significant amount of the world's commerce. This court's unique docket stems from Delaware's role as the legal home to more than 1.3 million entities, accounting for approximately 2/3 of all Fortune 500 companies and 1/2 of all public corporations in the United States. So now that we've looked at some of the different clerkship opportunities, both at the federal and state level, let's talk a little bit about when you should apply for clerkships. So for opportunities at the federal level, you will be applying if you are currently a 2L. There is a new federal law clerk hiring plan pilot And it is a pilot that is in place for 2 years. It applies to the classes of 2020, our current 2Ls, and 2021, our current 1Ls. For the class of 2020, this year's 2Ls, you'll be applying on June 17th, 2019. This will allow you to submit 2 years of law school grades at the time of application. One quick caveat: state court judges are not subject to the hiring plan, so you should consult the website of the state court for its individual application deadlines. For example, for the Delaware Chancery Court, applications are actually due on February 15th. Let's talk now about the application process itself. So there are a couple different application methods. Judges want applications in different forms. Some judges want paper applications. Some judges want applications to be sent via email. And some judges, I would say the large sort of percentage of, or large majority rather, of federal judges want applications to be submitted online through a system called the Online System for Clerkship Application and Review, otherwise known as OSCR. 2L students, the class of 2020, will gain read-only access to OSCR on February 6th, 2019. What does read-only access mean in this case? So on February 6th, you'll be able to set up your applicant profile. You'll be able to start researching clerkship vacancies in OSCR. OSCR, every federal judge has an OSCR account, and every federal judge's chambers has the opportunity to share with students information about available clerkship vacancies, including preferred application method, preferred qualifications and requirements, and any other information that they want to share with the student. You know, is it a 1-year clerkship? Is it a 2-year clerkship? All of those details they can share in their OSCR profile. So you'll gain the ability to build your profile and start researching vacancies. And then when you find an opportunity that you might want to apply to, you can actually start building an application to that judge, uploading your application materials and getting that application ready for submission. Now what will happen is you'll, over the course of this spring semester, if you're a 2L and you want to apply for fall 2020 term clerkships, you'll be building that application, and then you'll be working towards the June 17th date. On that date, you'll want to make sure that you've proofed everything in your application packet, that all of your recommendation letters have been attached to your online application, everything's ready to go, and you've hit the Submit Finalize button. That is what will make sure on June 17th that OSCR will automatically release all properly finalized online applications to judges' chambers nationwide so that those judges' chambers can consider candidates and start thinking about who they want to bring in for interviews. OSCR has a great applicant prep kit that you can actually gain access to now before the February 6th date if you want to get a preview of what OSCR is all about. So what goes into your application packet? There are some standard application materials: your cover letter, your resume, your law school transcript, a writing sample. But judges also require 3 letters of recommendation. Not references, but 3 actual letters of recommendation. So let's take a step back and talk about the writing sample for a minute. What are some examples of pieces that students have submitted successfully for their clerkship application packets? So here are some examples. A brief from your 1L writing class. A piece from 1L Summer, your 1L Summer internship. Maybe you did a fall internship during your 2L year and you developed a piece there. Or maybe you're in clinic, and you've developed a piece there. A brief from a moot court competition or another type of oral advocacy competition where you were asked to write a brief. A note or a comment that you wrote for a journal. A paper from a legal seminar class or a practice area specific legal writing workshop. Those are just some examples of pieces that students will use as their writing sample. And then, as I mentioned earlier, you need 3 letters of recommendation. So who are some of the people that you could think about asking? So at this point, you want to take a look back on your first 3 semesters of law school and think about the individuals who know you best and who perhaps have indicated an interest in supporting your career goals. So that might include professors and lecturers, maybe some of the 1L writing instructors, clinical faculty, your 1L summer supervisor, a supervisor from a 2L fall internship, or in some circumstances, a pre-law school professional supervisor. If you worked as a professional for a number of years before coming to law school and you have a strong mentor, especially if you worked in a legal setting, that person can sometimes write a really compelling recommendation letter because they probably know you better than anybody else that currently at your law school. So that's definitely something to consider if you are an applicant who worked substantially before law school. And when I say substantially, I mean 2+ years. So now that you've learned a little bit about the benefits of clerking and how to apply and when to apply, let's look at some key resources that will allow you to take some next steps in developing your own sort of research and application strategy. So here are some key clerkship research resources. Yale Law School is very generous, and they share publicly a lot of their career-related resources. And so I included a link to a list of online clerkship resources that they have made public. And it's really a great place to start in terms of familiarizing yourself with the judiciary and with the biographies of judges. One resource on that list that I wanted to specifically highlight for you was a resource called the Almanac of the Federal Judiciary, which I believe is available through both Westlaw and Lexis. And if you are having trouble accessing it, you should definitely talk to your law librarian, and they'll be able to help you access that resource. But that's a really great resource because it's sort of like an encyclopedia of judges. And so it'll include things like the judge's bio, but also community organizations they might be a part of, or law review articles that they published when they were in practice. It might include some of the blockbuster decisions that they've issued from the bench, just so you can get a sense of that. But it's a really good place to start when you're looking at a jurisdiction and you're starting to drill down on research judge by judge in that jurisdiction. There's a book that you might want to see if you can get access to through your law library or through your career development office. And it's called The All-Inclusive Guide to Judicial Clerking. And it is my clerkship Bible. I think it's a wonderful resource. I use it every day for clerkship advising. I used it to put together today's presentation. It's a really great book, and you don't have to read the whole thing. The index to the book is really well organized and allows you to access different tips and advice when you need them, as opposed to having to read the whole book. Like I said, if your career development office does not have it, you should ask them to order it or see if you can get it in the law library. I've included a link to the Amazon page for this particular book. I've also included links to 2 directories, which I think students find really helpful. These are directories that will allow you to see a list of judges sorted by race, ethnicity, gender, and sexual orientation and gender identity. This is a really great way to be able to put together a list of judges where there may be some shared affinities that you have, because sometimes these connections can be really powerful in the application process. And then finally, I included a link to the application, the clerkship application guide that is produced by 4 people of color, a pipeline organization, a legal pipeline organization. And it's really terrific. It's written by former clerks of color, and it really has fantastic perspectives that I know my students have really benefited from. And then finally, in terms of next steps, if you haven't yet met with your career services office to talk about your interest in clerking, you should definitely do that. Find out who in your career services office is the primary point of contact for clerkship advising and get on their calendar to have that conversation. Now is definitely the time to do that. When you're in that meeting, ask if you can be connected to future clerks, 3Ls who successfully went through the application process and were able to get a clerkship. They'll have really good insight to share with you about how to put together your application materials and how to do research and all kinds of tips that they learned as they went through this process. Their perspective is really invaluable. And you may know some 3Ls through affinity groups or student organizations or journals that are going to be clerking. Make sure and talk to them before they graduate. I think nobody gets a clerkship without having had the benefit of advice and support from people who have clerked before. So everybody really wants to give back in this process, and so take advantage of the generosity of those future clerks. You'll also want to talk to people who've clerked before, right? So these could be alums. These could be mentors that you've come into contact with during your first year and a half of law school. You should seek out faculty, look at the bios of faculty, and see who clerked and try to get into their office hours. This is a situation where you want to try to get as much advice as you possibly can, and you also really want to make sure that as many people know that you're interested in clerking as is possible. Again, this is a competitive process, and connecting with as many people who have clerked or will be clerking is really going to benefit you as you move your way through the process. And then finally, I wanted to highlight the Share the Wealth Clerkship Program, which is hosted by the Just the Beginning Foundation, another legal diversity pipeline organization. This is a terrific program that was started by a number of judges who wanted to make sure that there was a space for diverse clerkship applicants to sort of have the opportunity to apply to clerkships, and it has been a very successful program. How it works is when you are putting together your applications in OSCAR, you'll see in the Share the Wealth Clerkship Program frequently asked questions and directions page that there is a keyword that you're going to put into your applicant profile. This keyword is going to allow participating judges the ability to find you. And so the participating judges will look for Just the Beginning Foundation candidates who've denoted themselves as such in their OSCAR profiles, and then a panel of judges will invite some of those candidates, typically to the DC metro area, to interview with a panel of judges, and then that panel of judges will make recommendations to the larger group of participating judges about which candidates should receive offers. It's a great program, and I definitely would encourage you to look more into it. So I hope that you have found this program useful as a way to introduce you to judicial clerkships as a career path. I hope it's something that many of you will decide that you want to move forward with either immediately after graduation or a little bit later in your career. And I wish you the best of luck. Thanks so much for your time and attention.